Hi, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Explicitly Pro-Life podcast. I'm your host, Kristen Hawkins. And as you know, we are in the season featuring winning pro-life strategies. So, of course, we had to schedule Brian Westbrook to come on to talk to you all about what's happening there in St. Louis. Brian is the founder and executive director of the St. Louis Coalition for Life. He's an innovative leader. Since he has launched his organization in 2008, we've seen just anywhere in the pro-life movement, you can tell that there's something going on in St. Louis. They've witnessed over 2,900 turnarounds, lives saved, a dramatic reduction of abortions at the one last abortion facility there in St. Louis, the Planned Parenthood. Your percentage, Brian, is 99.4%. So what the heck are you doing? There's 0.6%.
Yeah, I know.
It's been a lot.
We're having a lot of fun, but there's a lot of work still to be done, especially on the other side of the river. So we're actually recording here in Illinois, in Fairview Heights, Illinois, where they moved a lot of their abortions. Planned Parenthood did over to this so-called mega abortion facility that they built secretly. So we celebrate what's happened in Missouri, and there's another 6% or 0.6% that needs to be done. But we're really pleased to be able to expand and grow and serve even more clients and save even more lives.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what's happened in Missouri and then now what's happened in Illinois, because I know, Reagan Barclage, our national field director, she's in St. Louis. She started as a regional coordinator, and we've a bunch of staff. And so I've been out there times. You've invited me out there to pray, and there's been rallies. And so I've been following this story because I think it's a very big story for the pro-life movement. We essentially have now the state of Missouri being surgical abortion free with this Planned Parenthood now. What can you tell me what's going on with the Planned Parenthood right there in St. Louis, and then we'll talk about what they've done in Illinois.
Sure. So Planned Parenthood and other providers. So there's also a hospital right next door. So between the two of them, last year in 2020, they did 53 abortions the entire year. 53. Back in 1984, at the height of abortions in Missouri, there were over 20,000 abortions. So that's made a major progress in Missouri. Now, one of the only reasons they do abortions in Missouri is for legal standing. There was a law passed a year or two ago called Ep.115, and Planned Parenthood is suing the state of Missouri over Ep.126, which has multiple different provisions in it that protect unborn children, including a heartbeat bill. And so that means that they are doing few, if any, abortions at the Planned Parenthood abortion facility in St. Louis, Missouri. We are there every single day and every single hour that they're open, because we know that that's still a risk for abortion, but also there are women who could be referred across the river to Illinois, and that's where most of them are going.
When you guys started Coalition for Life back in 2008, what did you implement there on the streets? Because it's an interesting, you've got this huge Planned Parenthood, but there's like a 4-lane road. It's a busy road. I know you enter into the parking lot and it's like gated. So, you only have like a few seconds to interact with someone going into that Planned Parenthood, because it's not like a typical like sidewalk where she's, in DC, for example, we can be with her until the moment she enters the doors. That's not like that. So what did you all implement? Because I want folks across the country to hear about some of the innovative tactics that you all have tried and implemented that you have found to work so well in St. Louis before even this law was passed in Missouri.
Oh, absolutely. So when we started, there are roughly around 7,000 abortions happening in Missouri. And so there was a lot of traffic flow, a lot of abortions happening. The parking lot was almost always full, and people were parking around the corner just to get in the door. It's like they were giving something away for free. And so we saw this high level of traffic flow as actually an opportunity versus a detriment in that we looked at how could I stop the car, right? So every decision that that person is going to make, the driver of the car. So we actually don't focus on specifically the woman, but instead we focus all of our attention on the driver in the car. So we look at Robert Cialdini's book, Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, these types of books, and good quality sales and marketing strategies that every other business uses in the regular for-profit world. And we looked at how could we approach the driver of the car. And so our first step is how can we stop more cars, right? And so we do have a little space in a driveway. And so we utilize this 20-foot space to wave and smile in a friendly way. And we actually removed almost every signage except for a few. One that says check in here, which is my favorite sign ever. And then one more that is just free pregnancy tests and ultrasound. So it's about not adding, but instead removing. And then on top of that, we wear an ugly orange vest. We wave with our left hand instead of our right hand. A left-handed person taught me that. It's closest to the driver. It makes us look bigger. And we smile, and the first thing we do is we see them stop, and we're encouraged by that. And then we just talk about the free services first, and then later we'll talk about abortion. But much like Cialdini talked in his book, is that we need a small, simple step. And too many times when we look at sidewalk counseling and going out to the abortion facility, too many times we want them to make a huge giant leap to change their entire outlook on abortion, give themselves to Christ, become a Christian, and turn their entire lives around. Instead, we're like, how can we get them to stop? How can we get them to talk to us and then have direct and immediate services right down the street or across the way at a mobile center? So we've approached it that way. And then we've also made a commitment to guarantee we'll be there every single day that this place is open. So just sheer volume as well helps to ensure that there are more positive successes.
That's awesome. And where do you send them? If you can get her to stop, get the car to stop, where do you then send her for help? Do you have a relationship, a partnership? How does that work?
Right. So one of the things that's in the pro-life movement is there's been this disconnect between pregnancy centers and what happens out on the streets, out in front of the abortion facility. In fact, some pregnancy centers will not allow you to volunteer or be associated at all with anything that goes in front of the abortion facility. I think we need to change that culture. And I think, seriously. And so what needs to happen is that you build that relationship with a local pregnancy center. We don't need to reinvent the idea of the pregnancy center. They've been out there working their tails off for 40 or 50 years and have done a great job with that. But one of the things we said to our local pregnancy center, which is Thrive, also Birthright down the street, is that we will guarantee we will be there during these hours. And I think that was a big major commitment that we made, guaranteed we will be there with 2 people trained and very much on fire for life. We can't guarantee they're going to be in the mobile center, right? We can't guarantee we'll get them in the door, but we will guarantee we will try our tails off and make sure that we're going to work really hard. So that bet, if you will, paid off. Early on, when there was a lot of high traffic at this abortion facility, we sent the mobile center 9 clients in one day. Our record is 9. Typically now, with lower traffic flows, we'll have 1, maybe 2 clients a day. But this allows us to build that relationship, is that we're going to guarantee we will be there. And if you can guarantee to us that you will be available and ready. And so just building those relationships is key to helping to solve the abortion crisis, especially right in front of the abortion facility.
That's fantastic. I mean, I remember the first time I worked at the pregnancy center, and we were dealing with this kind of in the middle of nowhere town in Colorado. They were doing about 8 abortions a week, and you had the sidewalk counselors and the crisis pregnancy center. And the crisis pregnancy center I went and met with them, and they explained to me they were even closed. They closed down on the days abortions were being done because that's how desperate they were to separate themselves from the sidewalk counselors. And so then the sidewalk counselors went out on their own, purchased a condo next to Planned Parenthood, got their own ultrasound machine because they were trying to get girls to see their children and offer help immediately, as opposed to saying, wait tomorrow when the pregnancy center down the street. I mean,
Right.
blows my mind. And I understand there are people who go on sidewalks who are not good sales folks for the pro-life movement, good representatives.
Yeah. Agreed.
Totally fair assessment. But there's got to be something we can do. And I know I donate personally to a pregnancy center outside of Raleigh. I went and spoke for their event, and I was blown away because that's what they figured out was, wait a minute, instead of letting this crazy guy, and literally they have a crazy guy, go and yell at women before she goes in the abortion facility, we're going to go out and do it.
Yeah.
You know, instead of just having our pregnancy center across the street, we're going to send our own trained staff out there, and we're going to get her, intercept her before the crazy guy starts yelling at her, and bring her to our loving, peaceful center. And they've just seen remarkable turnarounds. Okay, I want to back up to something you said, though, because I think it was, you said that your favorite sign is check in here. I love that. What made you think, let's be kind of ballsy and put in a check in here sign that makes us look like Planned Parenthood?
Well, I will never say that it makes us look like Planned Parenthood. I have had numerous people check in with me with the middle finger. They must be pointing to heaven. I don't know. But they check in with me and our team in so many different ways. I didn't say that they had to stop, right? One of my favorite stories is Paula Giannino, who is no longer the CEO of Planned Parenthood. She has since retired, probably because we gave her such a hard time. But Paula, early on in our ministry, she drives up. We just put the sign out there a couple of days prior, and she's frustrated because almost everybody is stopping. Everybody is talking to us, checking in with us. And so this is probably mid-morning. Paula drives in, stops in the driveway. Okay, this is my favorite part. She stops in the driveway, gets out of her car, points at the sign and says, "What the heck are you doing? No one's checking in here." And I respond, "Paula, people have been checking in with me all morning long, right? And in fact, Paula, you just checked in with me, right?" And so this exchange happened. A long story short, we kind of paused the check in here sign because we were creating so much trouble. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, the police come out. I put out a free pregnancy test and ultrasound sign instead, briefly. Mm-hmm. And so they ticket me for false and misleading advertising, even though I had a different sign out. A year and a half later, I finally, we get out of court on that one. Yeah. But I think we need to be, creative and ballsy, quite frankly, about what signage we're going to use. And also, most importantly, what we don't use. And so I just want to prove it out. And so if I run statistics and I say more people stop because I have a check in here sign, I'm going to be bold and put it out there.
So you're kind of like a Mark Cavalieri. Mark Cavalieri down in El Paso. I'm sure you know Mark.
I know.
You know Mark. Well. He tests out everything. Like he tests out like fonts and colors and like measures it. And I just love that because it's not about what you think works. It's like, what are the numbers telling you that works? And sometimes it is intuition because you can't get really great, feedback on something, but it's intuition that you've learned, accepting that, hey, we could be totally wrong on this. Like we could think this is like the best idea. Like students, like, we'll put something out. We're like, this is the best idea we've ever had. And then like it totally, flops. And we're like, okay, maybe it wasn't the best idea we've ever had. Right. So I love that, just freeing your mind, because that shows that your mind is open to let's do something new and not be limited by what's previously been done in the pro-life movement or with traditional sidewalk counseling. Like, let's put in a check-in sign and see what happens. The vest, the ugly vest you wear, that looks very similar to the ugly vest that the Planned Parenthood desk courts wear. Like,
just happens, right? Just happens, right?
like that is good salesmanship. So I absolutely love that. So you guys have done a tremendous job on your ground game in front of that Planned Parenthood. You've got the partnership with Thrive, which has the mobile unit, which is, I believe the last time I checked, it's like right across the street. You've got the state legislature there in Missouri passing pro-life law after pro-life law, like rushing. I love sometimes in some of the states, like the state legislators are all rushing to be the first abortion-free state. And so they're like competing with each other. It's like the best thing ever. Competition's always good.
I love it. I love it.
So, but now you've done such an amazing job in Missouri. Planned Parenthood this is how they play. Planned Parenthood plays dirty, and we know this. Like, they're always thinking one step ahead. I mean, this is the evil of Planned Parenthood. So they played dirty in Illinois, and they realized that the tide had shifted, turned against them in Missouri. What you all were doing was outsmarting them, what Thrive's doing, what the state legislature's doing. So they went ahead and secretly built a mega abortion facility across the river. Can you explain what happened in Illinois, how you all found out?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So we found out just like your team did with a press conference and a press release. And so Planned Parenthood had purchased the building itself under a completely different name. Somebody else purchased it, and then they got all the permitting and everything else. In fact, pro-life people worked on that building. And plumbers, electricians, the fence. In fact, once the announcement came out, the fence was halfway built. And you're popping. I'm sorry. Now all of a sudden I stopped. You
look good on my end.
Making noises. Okay. Should I just start with my answer again?
Yeah, good.
Sorry. Yeah, so Planned Parenthood in Illinois, they're playing dirty, and they started in Fairview Heights, Illinois. And when they decided to build this abortion facility, they used a completely different company to build it and to renovate it. In fact, pro-life individuals actually worked on the building, from the plumbers to the electricians, and also the people putting up the fence. When Planned Parenthood announced that they were going to open this facility, it was news to everybody. They actually, quite frankly, did a great job of keeping it secret. And so we learned in a press release just like everybody else did, sadly. And so
there were a lot of expletives coming from my mouth when I got that.
Right. I know. And so I know your team was out there right away and organized a great protest and a rally. And I think you guys did a phenomenal job with that. And so as part of that, we had a decision to make. These were the same, quote, doctors or abortionists, the same staff, the same individuals from Missouri, just moving all of their operations, or the vast majority of them, over to Illinois. So we had a decision to make. What are we going to do? And so within 2 weeks, we were able to mobilize our entire team and go find the individuals, both volunteers and staff. And on day one, we started a full-blown sidewalk counseling effort every single day that they were open. So since day one, we've been there, with the exception of this like COVID lockdown thing that happened sometime last year, right? This thing.
It still happened.
Yeah, but Planned Parenthood didn't miss a beat. They didn't go home. They kept doing abortions all the way through the whole COVID lockdown. And so Fairview Heights, Illinois, they proclaimed they're going to take the lives of 11,000 children. On camera, they said they're going to do 11,000 abortions each year. So now they've got a facility in Flossmoor, Illinois, which is just right across the way from Indiana, and another one in Waukegan, which is just right across the border as well. And so they know what they're doing in Illinois. They're circling the wagons, and they're making sure that women from other states can access abortion in Illinois.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, they're already Dobbs-proofing their industry. They're moving to chemical abortion. They know there's going to be, when Roe is reversed or severely weakened, abortion deserts, states, groups of states that move to make abortion illegal. So they're just, circling into these abortion loving states. Illinois is one of them. And making sure they're doubling down in all these efforts, and making sure Indiana, Wisconsin, Missouri, all their borders are covered. It's unbelievable. And in fact, if you're an Illinois resident, you should be ashamed because this is how bad your state is, that Planned Parenthood knows they're getting safe harbor by locating it in Illinois, that they're going to be protected, and they're going to have a state government that looks out for them and funds them.
Well, and sadly, I see a lot of pro-life individuals, well-meaning, moving to Missouri. And I love my home state. I love Missouri. It's a show-me state, and so we're gonna, kick butt and take names.
Very proud of Missouri,
right? But we have pro-life individuals, voting individuals, moving from Illinois into Missouri. We see the same thing happening in California and other states like this. I know. And so what happens is that in
California, I'm convinced, when you're in California, you need to stay in California and fix your state before you move and export your problems to another state. Sorry.
Well, that's a whole nother podcast for another time, right?
That's Kristen's conservative podcast.
Got it. So, no, but I would agree. We need to stay where we're at and fix the problems that are sitting in front of us. And a lot of times we want somebody else to fix them, or not in my backyard, all of these other things. And so I would, the people who are watching and listening, the problems are not necessarily, while we have a lot of problems in Washington, D.C., most of the battle is being won at the state level. Right? Why does abortion, they have 53 abortions in Missouri. We have the Texas law that might actually go into effect, the heartbeat bill. We don't quite know yet. But we have great opportunities at the state level. Mm-hmm. And so I would say, stay there and fight and
That's
work
right.
hard.
That's what I always tell when I meet people who come to me and are like, I'm a Democrat. I'm like, great. Stay in your party and fix it, please. Like, I'm not advocating that you become Republican. Like, that's not my job. We need you to fix the Democratic Party to, like, I don't know, like babies a little bit more than want to pay for some other people to kill them. Like, I have very low expectations of what can happen, but like maybe just like babies a little bit more. So no, you're so right. I mean, I think a lot of it though is because of taxes, though. It's your pocketbook. If you're living in the border of Illinois, you might as well move to a state where you can save some, thousands of dollars in property tax and income tax. Right. I'm filming this in Chicago where there's like a tax on tax on tax. I mean, it's like, it's unbelievable. My son and daughter's cystic fibrosis doctor moved here, and so we come here all the time, and she's not conservative or pro-life or anything. And I warned her, I was like, you don't want to move to Chicago. I was trying to convince her not to. I was like, you don't want to move there. And that's the first thing she said. She's like, the taxes, I just couldn't believe how much money I'm paying. I'm like, I tried to tell you.
Gas is 60 cents more expensive in Illinois than it is in Missouri.
Of course you would know this, yes. Brian, you need to be like a state representative for Missouri and just go around the country and like recruit everyone to come in Missouri.
I have too much work in the pro-life movement to be when you
shut down this abortion facility in Fairview Heights, maybe you can take a little bit of a break. So what are you doing? I guess the question is, what are you doing? So you're out there every day. Are there pregnancy centers in the Fairview Heights area where you're also connecting women into the local nonviolent alternatives?
Oh, yes. So the kind of the cool story, and this is definitely the God moment here, is that when we came over to Fairview Heights, we knew a couple of people here, but we really know a lot of people. And so we just started asking lots of questions. That's what we do. We're, question askers and inquisitive. And so we asked about the building right next door to Planned Parenthood. And sure enough, at least at the time, it was owned by a pro-life business owner. And I'm like, Planned Parenthood didn't do their homework because they didn't know that the building right next door was owned by a pro-life guy. And so they were actually in the midst of selling the building. And so I called them up and I said, hey, is there any place for lease? And they actually showed me around. Very few times on the other side of the river in the heart of St. Louis City did people even talk to me, but they were willing to show me around and everything else. And so And so basically we had to negotiate with two owners, the one that's about to buy it and one that's not. And that's obviously a tough, hill to climb. And so we're like, it's probably not worth it. It's not quite working out. Maybe it's not God's plan. And then I got a call. Hey, our contract just expired. We got 1 week before we re-sign. Would you like to negotiate with the pro-life owner versus this new guy? And I said, you betcha. And so I called up 1-800-Thomas More Society. Let's get this done. Our good friend Tom Brecka up there in Chicago and his team helped us out. 1 week later, we got a signed contract which then guarantees a mobile center right next door to Planned Parenthood for the next 10 years. So a great center called Mosaic now parks their unit there, almost every single day. We're working still on Saturday, but right next door, literally a foot from their fence of Planned Parenthood, along with Thrive Metro East, which is up in the Alton area, and another Mosaic location as well. And then we also have started our own pregnancy center called Women's Care Connect as well to augment some of the other efforts there as well. So we're really excited. We had great partnerships when we first started, great people to collaborate with. And now we have a unit and also an office location and a prayer chapel literally right next door to Planned Parenthood.
I love how you negotiated the 10 years because that's like your deadline. You got to get this done in 10 years, Brian. You got to shut down that facility. So
yes, with a lot of get out of jail free cards because we're optimistic. Let's do it before then.
Yes, that's true. I think that's fantastic that you guys were so prepared that on day one, you guys had moved. You were fast moving and you got your butts from St. Louis to Fairview Heights and haven't let them rest a day. I mean, I'm sure they were like hoping to just get a little bit of reprieve from Brian Westbrook and the Coalition for Life of St. Louis. And that you didn't want. That's what I love about it so much. Because the conversation was like, dang it, we hoped we would get away from those people and they followed us over the river.
Right.
But I do think you're right. We've been door knocking in the Fairview Heights area for Students for Life's Abortion Free Cities campaign, which it's not really public yet, but St. Louis area has been one of our test cities. And that was our problem. We chose St. Louis. We had so many student groups and then we're like, well, wait a minute, it is almost abortion free. So it's St. Louis, but really it's Illinois. But we've had some interesting stories door knocking because we're door knocking the neighborhood surrounding the abortion facility. The first go out, we were door knocking, talked to a Planned Parenthood donor who was like, oh yeah, that's so great. Didn't even know they were committing abortions, committed to never donating them again on the spot. We've actually had calls we've been able to measure, and I think we have Mosaic's information on our door hanger because we have like a little chart, and it's like, here's the services Planned Parenthood does, and here's all the things the Nonviolent Alternatives Center does. And so we've been able to measure calls into Mosaic and appointments scheduled because of that. So it's been interesting to see that it's not like door knocking in like downtown Chicago would be. There's definitely a lot of folks that are receptive that just truly, I think it underscores the whole thing that we see all the time is people do not know what Planned Parenthood actually does. They do not understand, even if they can say that they do abortions, they don't know what abortions actually do, the violence of abortion. And the other thing we know is people do not know the resources exist. It like blows my mind. Like, when I'm on a campus or I'm door knocking and people are like, oh, you pro-lifers, you're so judgmental. What do you do for women? I'm like, have you ever met us? Hello. Let me tell you who we are and what we do. It like drives me insane because when we're door knocking, all we're doing is offering resources and saying, hey, we want to tell you about these nonviolent alternatives that exist in your community. And no one ever knows that they exist. And sometimes we're door knocking like with a pregnancy center down the street and no one knows that pregnancy center exists. Unbelievable.
Well, and so that's one of the things, if I was running a for-profit business, wouldn't one of the things that I would do, the first and foremost is I need sales. I need to sell who I am and get people in the door. With no sales, there is no business, right? And so sales and marketing from a pro-life perspective needs to be in the budget, at least one line item saying sales and marketing and talking to those abortion-minded women or just generally getting your name out there so people know that you even exist. And so it's we've been so timid. Well, we'll collect diapers and we'll go knock on the church's doors and get all the people around us who are like-minded to know who we are. But your job, you should spend twice as much time going and talking to those abortion-minded clients or those who might be abortion vulnerable and spend your marketing and your sales dollars there. We've had a very, very successful Google ad campaign where we are getting very, very heavily abortion-minded clients to come into our center. Why? Because we market well, we run advertising, we put money and effort and time into it. And so in fact, those who are not abortion-minded or abortion vulnerable, there are lots of great places for them. And it pains us sometimes to say no to those clients. And so then we refer them. There's a whole network. There's 200 groups in our network. But we spend a lot of time with abortion vulnerable or abortion-minded clients. And that's where we put our marketing and sales dollars, if you will, just like any other for-profit business. So I love what you guys are doing, knocking on doors, putting the word out there, and obviously then, talking about Mosaic and all the other alternatives that are out there besides the violence of abortion.
Yeah, I was like shouting. I had to put myself on mute so I didn't if I had $1 billion to end abortion, I always say I would put 900 million of it into marketing. It's a marketing because not only do we have a problem that women in crisis, families in crisis don't know where to turn, but you also have people who haven't decided where they stand on the issue yet, and you have people who are against abortion but are too afraid to speak out. If you had America knowing that there's 500 pregnancy centers and maternity homes out there, and there's all these resources, and that this is what we do every single day in the pro-life movement, you'd probably convince a lot more people to stand with us against abortion. Those who are against abortion in the pews but afraid to say anything might be more willing to, donate or go and show up and be a trained Iowa counselor of Coalition for Life and be like, oh, I'm going to actually stand with these people now because I know they have this whole army and there's all these resources, a whole ecosystem, infrastructure behind them. You'd have people changing their minds about abortion to say, oh, those pro-lifers, they're not just these judgmental old white people that we always say that are so mean and bigoted and whatever, new name they want to call us. They actually do it. They put their money where their mouth is and are doing every day. You would change minds and you would save lives. It's a win-win-win, as Michael Scott would say. But sorry, I get so excited when I hear other pro-life leaders talk about marketing because I think it's something that I'm convinced that we have to put a serious discussion, and we have to have a serious discussion on the pro-life movement, put some serious dollars to, because they just don't know. And we think everyone should know because we're in the pro-life movement, just like how we think everyone should know how violent and gruesome abortion really is, and people just don't know. So, okay, one thing before I wrap up. The reason I'm doing this series is I'm making sure that some of my friends who are doing incredible work across the country, what you're doing gets spread out there, that others who are listening to you can say, I can do that. I can take what Brian's done in St. Louis and apply it to my city. What is the nugget of wisdom? What's the one thing that you want folks who are listening to this call to think about, to remember when they're trying to implement and start a pro-life ministry, a revolution in their city?
Oh yeah. Well, so can I have multiple things, Kristen, or is it just one? Am I limited? So number one, obviously pray and fast. That's critical and important. Do that first. And then second, look at the pro-life movement in your town, in your city, and say, what is the one thing I can do? There are so many different things you could do, but pick one, right? You could get ridiculously overwhelmed because you've got 12, 15 different priorities. So pick one, and then put your 100% time that you're going to commit. So let's say you commit 5 hours a week to whatever that effort is, commit 100% to that effort. So if it's a local pregnancy center, go all in. If it's a local sidewalk counseling ministry, go all in, but go all in for whatever time you're going to commit to. So for me, it was just as much time as humanly possible. Every moment I'm waking, I can put into the pro-life movement. Then by all means, we're going to do that with regards to serving those abortion-minded and abortion-vulnerable clients, starting directly outside of the abortion facilities themselves. Also, if you're going to make that commitment, especially if you're doing sidewalk counseling, we know, for instance, 40 Days for Life. Are you covering every single hour? Are you making a commitment to be out there no matter what? We have story after story of our volunteers and our team driving through snowstorms, shoveling ourselves out of our cars so that then we could go to the abortion facility. If they're there killing children through this violent act of abortion, why are we not there? And so if I'm a little achy, or it's a little inconvenient, it's a little what? Well, the abortionist doesn't say that. The abortionist says, oh, I'm a little achy or whatever, but I'm going to go anyways because abortion is so important to them that even when it's inconvenient, they're there killing children. Okay. And so when it's inconvenient is the most important time for us to go and commit ourselves to that effort. And so it's all about commitment. And then finally, I would say, running a nonprofit, we should run them like businesses. I always kind of compare it to, this is not your grandma's knitting circle. Planned Parenthood has a business strategy of killing children through abortion, and they keep growing and growing that number, not just nationally, but also internationally. And so what we want to do is look at this as how can we, from a business perspective, impact the numbers of abortion, and then also see an end to abortion in our community and beyond. And so let's set all of those old sites of what is a nonprofit and what are these other groups doing who are just kind of it's good. Quite frankly, it's a difference between good and greatness. And one of the things you guys do at Students for Life, just to celebrate you guys as well, is that you look at the great versus the good. And one of the reasons I'm on your show today is because you do great things. And so let's look at the great and say no to the good or the subpar and put all of our time and energy and effort into great things that ultimately will end the abortion tragedy in our country.
Amen. How can folks who are like, I've never heard of this, what's going on in St. Louis, how can folks get connected with you and follow what you're doing now in Fairview Heights as well as St. Louis?
Oh, absolutely. You just started our website, coalitionforlifestl.com, or just Google us because we do good sales and marketing and ad placement. So if you Google Coalition for Life St. Louis, it should pop up. And then we also have an ongoing video series, Living Pro-Life, along with anything we put on social media. But if you're anywhere near St. Louis, please join us out on the sidewalks. But then also, if you are trying to start a ministry or start any effort in any other city around the country, we would love to help. So I've been working with leaders around the country, one of which you mentioned earlier, Mark Cavalieri, who you just called me up, says, hey, I heard about the things that you're doing in St. Louis. How do I start? And now, Mark and his crew in El Paso is surpassing us. And so we're very, very pleased to be able to see the growth that happens when we work together, we volunteer information, and we see the common goal versus a turf warfare. So it's a pleasure to be on your program, and it's an honor to work in the pro-life movement.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on today. I really appreciate and taking the time out of your busy schedule there and everything you're doing to shut down that Planned Parenthood. I don't want to take any more time. Go shut down that Planned Parenthood and save some babies. Thanks, Brian. And thank you all for tuning in today.